Test 1. All right, test 1. Everybody got test 1 there, right? What, Chelsea, do you have test 1? You got test 1? All right, I'm going to whip through this. Technician A says the first step in the diagnostic process is to verify the problem.
Yes.
If we hadn't verified the problem, why in Sam Hill are we working on the truck or the car? Technician B says the second step is to perform a thorough visual inspection. Both of those guys are right. Okay, you're going to look it over. Now, let me tell you something. Let me make a caveat on that. If you're working on an intermittent problem, don't jerk on stuff or move things around, because you may fix it, or by moving it away, and then when it works its way back over, you got to come back. If it's a problem that's there all the time, and you verified that the problem's there all the time, you be wise when you're looking around and say, can this have anything to do with that? I think it can. You may find other stuff, but a visual inspection is really important. Which item is not important to know before starting a diagnosis of an engine performance problem?
Brand of oil.
The brand of oil. Who cares what brand of oil in most cases? I guess anybody could probably build a case for anything, but that's the right answer.
What's the paper test?
A paper test is when you hold a dollar bill or a piece of paper by the pipe down there, and it goes puff, 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 and it's puffing. Or you can also, if it sucks, in there, you may have some issues there. But you can find a faulty injector, ignition system, bad plug wire, or burned valve. You remember how I told you if you can hold your hand down there if it's going puff, 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 puff. A burned valve will have if it's an exhaust valve burn, it can suck back in. That doesn't always mean you got a burnt valve, but it's an indicator. Some of the diagnostic steps that we do when we're doing engine performance stuff, I always like to have, if it's all possible, I love the go-no-go test. The fact that if it passes this test that I'm going to do on it, I know that I don't have a problem in this area. If it fails this test, I know I do have a problem in this area. There aren't that many of those. You know what I mean? Like a go-no-go test like on instrument clusters. If you were driving a car, and let me ask you this. Let's say that the odometer works just fine, but the needle doesn't move on the speedometer. What do you know?
Your speed still works.
You know that it's getting a speed signal or the odometer wouldn't work, right? And I know that, and like I say, with all these new computerized instrument clusters, anything's possible. But in the olden days, every single time, that meant you had a bad speedometer. That's all it could be. If you're reading anything or if your speedometer's working but your odometer's not, you got a bad speedometer hit. See, if I see that, you can reason that out. You didn't have to do a bunch of diagnostics. You just bang, bang, right away. So that's the difference between somebody that knows how to fix a car and somebody that's just a yo-yo. Anyway. And I'm not saying people that don't know how to fix cars are yo-yos, but there are people that think they know how to fix cars that don't. And that's what we're trying to.
Under the hood of a vehicle.
Yeah, there's some people that don't have any business under there, except maybe they're checking their oil. This one girl, here's funny, on one of these Jeep Liberties or something, she saw a low coolant. Bless her heart, she's a girl. She's just trying to do what she could to keep her Jeep going, and it was nearly new. But she saw this little picture of something on the dash that looked like a radiator or a low coolant, whatever it was. And so she opens the hood, and there's two caps here that are right next to each other. They're not far apart. They're like 6 inches apart. One of them is for engine oil. The other's for coolant. She takes the oil cap off and fills the crankcase up with coolant. All the way to the top. Well, she just didn't know. But she felt like, I need to do something about this. I'm low on coolant. She was just trying to, do what she thought that she knew how to do. But on that particular car, it was a disaster. But it didn't ruin anything. It just drained it all out and, let the PCV system handle them. Apparently, she figured it out before she tried to start it or something. I don't know. They had towed it on the hook. Technician A says if the opposite diagnostic trouble code can be set, the problem is the component itself. Now, what is he talking about there? Are you confused about it? Huh?
Skip number 4.
All right, technician B. I skip number 4. Which steps should be performed last when diagnosing an engine performance problem? Verify the repair. Make sure it's fixed in as much as you can. If it's an intermittent problem, it's only happening every 400 miles, you're probably not going to be able to, go there. Okay, technician A says if the opposite diagnostic trouble code, how would you set the opposite diagnostic trouble code? This is not complicated. I'll show you in a second. Technician B says if the opposite DTC cannot be set, the problem with the wiring or grounds. Okay, let's watch this. This is going to be quick. I'm trying to make this move fast for all of us. Okay, because we have to get out of the shop. See this TP sensor? This is a TP sensor here. And this is the easiest one to do this on because it's really easy to, all right. This is 5 volts, right? This is signal return. It's basically like it's a ground going back to the computer. And this right here is a signal. This is the one the computer is reading. This one right here. Okay, so let's say that we've got a code. Let's just go back to the 2-digit code so that we can write this quick. In the old days, on the old Ford cars, a 63 meant that the TP voltage had gone low. A 53 meant that it had gone high. Now let's say that you've drawn a triagnostic trouble code, and the PCM is expecting to see about 1 volt on this wire here. And let's say that it's seeing 0 volts. And it's throwing a 63 because it's seeing 0 volts. Okay, now, like I say, this is an old code. Now we got PO, this, that, and the other, PO 125 and all that. I'm just doing this because it's quick. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect this sensor right here. Take it out of the loop. All right, the computer doesn't know what you're doing. It doesn't have eyes on the ground. All right, now what is this right here is 5 volts. We're going to take this 5 volts and we're going to jumper this to there. You see what we've done?
It's going to cause it high.
If it does cause it high, then we know that we had a bad TP sensor. If it doesn't move, if the computer still sees 0, you got a problem with your wiring. Got it?
Yep.
Because if this is cut, you're still going to have low voltage, right?
Yep.
If this and this are shorted together, you're going to have low voltage. I will tell you this. If this and this are shorted together on a Ford, it won't start. It won't start. It won't talk to the scan tool. And your scan tool is worthless if it won't talk. You can have a $7,000 scan tool, and if it won't talk, you better get out your meter and know how stuff's wired up. I'm telling you. All right, now listen. Let's move on here. That was C, both B and C. Everybody understand this? Did this go over anybody's head? That's what I want to know. You got that? That wasn't really hard to understand, was it? What we're doing here. Okay. The preferred method to clear diagnostic trouble code
Use scan tool.
is use a scan tool. You guys might have seen on that Dodge product the other day, you turn the key on 3 times and it gives you the trouble code on the odometer. You remember that? On that one that you and Brandon was working on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now then, let me see. Which is a factory scan tool for Chrysler brand vehicles equipped with CAN, which is Control Area Network. StarScan, that's the really fancy tool. Now, StarScan's a cool tool when they had it out there. What they do is you pull up this little screen. It looks similar to that thing right over there, except it's a touch screen. And it gives you a network map of all your modules and how they're wired up and all that. And let's say that you got ABS, you got parking aid, you got passive anti-theft, you got body computer, you got PCM, you got module after module after module. You may have 30 modules on that sucker. Say, all right, now I want to know about my ABS. You touch the ABS module on the screen and it goes, and it comes up. You got your ABS right there, and you can do your tests and your diagnostics right there. But it's just tapping. You just touch the screen. It's more than a pretty picture is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's move on here. Technician A says programming a PCM with a J2534 system requires a factory scan tool. He's wrong. You know why? Because I've got a J2534 a programmer out there that requires no factory scan tool. Technician B says programming a PCM using the J2534 system requires an internet access. He's right. Okay, J2534, you got a box right here. That's what I got. Let me get my big marker. I got a box right here, right? Okay, I got a box connected to a PC, laptop, whatever. And this cable is plugged in over here on the car. All right. Now then, you got to open an interface on your PC so that you can get the proper calibration. And it brings the calibration into the PC and takes it through this J2534, and you can reflash that engine controller using this tool right here. That's your 2534. J, when you see something J, you know how you'll say J this, J2788, J1962. All of that is Society of American Engineers standards. SAE standards, which will be a little thing saying the J 1930 regulation, I think it was, says that all of the sensors on all of the cars in the United States have got to be named the same thing. And the DLC under the dash has got to be where anybody can plug into it with a generic scan tool and read your necessary code. Huh? That's OBD2. Yeah, exactly. That's part of the OBD2 regulation. They've even got they've got J designations for the various networks and stuff under the car. But anyway, that's another story. Okay, technician A says knowing whether there are any stored diagnostic trouble codes may be helpful when checking for related technical service bulletins. They're right. He's right. I'm sorry. Technician B says only a factory scan tool should be used to retrieve DTC's hogwash. That's A. You can use the generic scan tool. I got a little scan tool. It's a teeny little tiny thing I carry in my Jeep. It'll pull codes, read diagnostic data, everything. Costs $60. And I can get y'all one if you want one too, by the way, if you got $60 to spend on it. All right. And it's good to have one in there. You know, if your check engine light comes on and you know what it is, you just turn it right back off. That's what I always do, you know, on my Jeep, because sometimes it throws a code. Let me see.
That's for the truck. The check engine light wasn't on, it wouldn't run right.
Yeah. Which method can be used to program a PCM? Off-board, direct, remote, all the above. You can program them anyway. Which steps should be performed first when diagnosis an engine performance problem? Visual inspection. We got that already. An ignition misfire or air fuel mixture problem is the type of what kind of DTC? That's a type A, right? Ignition misfire is type A. That means you need to fix it right away. Why? Because if you don't fix it and it's an air fuel mixture problem, it can damage the catalytic converter, and nobody wants to buy one of those.
Sure don't. They sell for scrap for $60. I can imagine what they are now.
Yep. Technician A says check coolant level in a radiator when it's hot. No. Technician B says check it whenever it's cool. Okay, everybody knows that. Last step is verify the repair. We've already been there. Okay, type A and type B diagnostic trouble codes are related to what? Emissions. They're related to emissions. Okay, they're not related to speed, safety, or electrical accessories. All that's nonsense. Some DTCs require a certain number of trips before they'll set a code and turn on the MIL. A type A code will set on which attempt? Type A code's the first attempt. Bam, right away. You know, your check engine light starts flashing. That means you got a misfiring cylinder, and they're afraid you're going to damage your converter. Using the scan tool to clear a trouble code will also erase the what? The freeze frame data. Now, what's the freeze frame data? Whenever these new cars set a trouble code, they take a snapshot of about 10 parameters, like a vehicle speed, coolant temperature, whether it was in closed loop or not. There's a bunch of stuff. And if you see a trouble code, you can go look at that freeze frame data, and you can see what was going on whenever they, in other words, how fast were they driving, how hot was the engine. There's all kinds of neat little stuff that you can pull up. If they were driving it at 60 miles an hour on the freeway, and it was at 198 degrees, and, this, that, and the other. Sometimes the freeze frame data will show you a lot about where the problem is. Sometimes it's just so you can get out there and get in a similar conditions window. You can get it at the same temperature, you can drive the same speed, and you've got more of a chance of duplicating their concern that way.
State troopers use freeze frame data a lot to find out how fast you run when you wreck the vehicle.
Yeah, they can do that, and if it's got a code set, it won't actually have freeze frame unless it has set a trouble code, though. Now, they're actually talking about putting black boxes on all the new cars, so that kind of like on an aircraft, so that it records everything that how the person was driving and all that kind of stuff, and how far they had driven. And,
so much trouble now.
Yeah. Huh?
I'd stay in trouble all the time.
Yeah. Yes. Engine spark should be detected using what? Spark tester. Don't stick out your tongue. Okay. All right. A vehicle is being checked with a scan tool after sitting in the shop overnight. Technician A says the intake air temperature sensor and the engine coolant temperature sensor will read the same temperature. Is he right? They better. Don't you know about the second law of thermodynamics? If it's been sitting there all night, they're going to read the same temperature. Transmission oil temperature, engine coolant temperature, intake air temperature, they're all going to read the same temperature. If they ain't, you got issues. Brief story, and I need to tell these stories so you guys will get the benefit of my experience. I was over one time, went over to Bondi's to help out a little bit one day. One time I was off between semesters or something. And they says, there's a Dodge truck behind the body shop. Came in here about a month ago. They've been working on it doing a lot of work on it. They got it pretty well finished up, but now it's sitting out there and it won't start. Well, we had gone from summer into an early fall. It was cool outside. Okay, so I go out here. First thing I do is to verify the problem. I'm smelling gas. It ain't starting. Okay, what I do next? I plug the scan tool in. I look at my sensors. My engine coolant temperature sensor is reading 40 degrees because that's how cold it is outside. And I'm in now you got to remember, in the enhanced mode, which I had the DRB3, the real expensive Chrysler scan tool that they had. I went in there, this is what I saw. I'll tell you this right quick. Remember this. I saw 40 degrees, not 40 below, I saw 40 degrees because the air was cold outside. And I saw 101 degrees on the intake air temperature. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? Now that's in the enhanced mode. Now you guys remember this. I'm telling you, do not play dumb with me. Watch this. See over here? This is enhanced mode. Enhanced data. Okay, but on your OBD2, there's another room in that computer that can. Did you know you can have codes in the OBD2 room that won't show up over here? You darn sure can. I've seen it. I've actually cleared a misfire code out of this room and had to go into that room and clear it again to get the check engine light turned off. That's very rare, but it does happen. It happens sitting right out here on an Escort. All right. On the OBD2 room, what you're going to see here is 40 degrees on the ECT and minus 40 on the IAT. Now, why is this? Well, on the computer, the people that set up the thing says, if we can't trust our IAT, we're just going to substitute something that will probably work and go use that value for our little map, right? Okay, so what happens there is these knotheads messed us up because when this went to 40 degrees and that was 101, it's just pumping all kinds of gas in there and it's wet the spark plugs. All right, now what I did, this is what I did, and you're really going to appreciate this. I took a potentiometer, and we talked about this a little bit before, which is by Radio Shack, and I got one around here somewhere. I usually weave around whenever I'm showing this. I don't know if it's in there or not. But anyway, I got one somewhere here. Maybe laying up here. Maybe in here. Anyway, a little potentiometer. I can show you one out there. Put it in a little box. And I'm going to hook this thing up just to these two, just two of these. The middle one and that one on the side, I hook up to my sensor. All right. I dial this knob, and it's got to be one that's like to 50,000 ohms, 0 to 50,000 ohms. I dial that knob real careful, and I watch my scan tool, and I dial it down to where this matches. Boom, fires right up. See, I've tricked it into thinking that everything's okay. Well, what happened was we had a bad intake air temperature sensor. Looked brand new. And I'll tell you how this played out. They went to AutoZone or Advance or somewhere, and they said, hey, I've got a check engine light. And this was in the warm summertime, whenever they weren't really having a starting problem. The guy plugs it in. He sees a code for an intake air temperature sensor. He says, well, you got that intake air temperature sensor. So he goes on the shelf, and he gets another one off the shelf that happens to be not worth a crap either. Puts it in there. This check engine light doesn't go away. They got the same code. And he said, it must be a problem in your wiring. And so the guy drives away. Well, I'm just not giving me any trouble. I'm just going to drive it like that. Well, the first cold snap comes. And that's the reason for it. Got it? You see why that was an important thing for me to tell you?
Yep.